Like many of you, I jumped at the chance of playing Diablo 4 as soon as possible, which means that I had to pre-order the game to get into this beta weekend. Just a quick thing to mention, next weekend is the open beta stress test, which everyone, even if you don't buy the game, can play. So before I say anything else, I highly recommend that you, at the very least, give it a shot because, wow, I got a lot of things to say about this game. And before anyone asks why there's Diablo 4 content on this channel, even after I said that I'd be putting it on my second channel, yeah, I did say that, but very quickly, let me explain myself and we'll get into the video. So there's been a change of plan going forward that I'll be making Diablo 4 and WoW content on this channel. Not only will it be a great way for me to gain more subscribers, but my hope is that I can get some more WoW players to try out a new game, and then have some Diablo 4 players be able to try out WoW. As I said before, this will always be a World of Warcraft channel, and WoW content is not going to stop. In fact, with all the information coming out from 10.1, I've got a lot of ideas for some new videos coming up pretty soon. And like always, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more Diablo 4 related content like this in the future. Alright, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into the video. So I've spent over 10 hours on the beta and did just about everything you guys can do aside from hitting max level on all 3 classes. I decided to focus on the sorcerer and get him to level 25 and just do as much as I could. I cleared the level 25 stronghold, killed the world boss, and after everything, I'm still wanting to continue playing. So the beta weekend gave us access to all of Act 1. Max level, like I mentioned, is 25. You have access to the Barbarian, the Rogue, and the Sorcerer, and Blizzard pretty much let us do whatever we want. After playing, I gotta say that my fears have all gone away about this game. I think this game is going to be a real contender for Game of the Year, and be the next big game for a long time. However, I will say the last part is going to be heavily dependent on just how good the endgame looks. Because, let's be honest, games like this live or die based on their endgame content. Blizzard has done some really cool things with this game, and added new evolutions to the genre in ways that I didn't think that they would actually work, but they just do. Opening up to the world into a shared space with other players surrounded you sounded weird, but after playing it and seeing how, just having other people running around made the world feel alive. The way the shared space works is that basically you can see other players in town, you can see them out in the world, kind of running around doing stuff. The moment you go into a dungeon, you're there by yourself, unless you decide to group up with other people. So you can play this game 100% solo if you want. And the one thing I do like about this open world kind of game is just how it really gives me these strong Guild War 1 vibes, which is just really nice to see. One thing that worried me about this game was how they were going to do their items. But after spending some time in the game, I think it's safe to say that they've nailed itemization, at least for the most part. In a Diablo game, you want to be swapping out gear like it's candy, right? One thing that I will say is, I'm not sure if I like how we're going to be using our legendary items and the aspects on them. I messed around with the system a bit. I broke down a couple of legendary items to gain the aspects from them, and was able to put those onto new gear to create new legendaries. But for me, I feel like the legendary items that I was using just didn't feel really that impactful. I got a lot of duplicates and a lot of really boring ones. For instance, stuff like when you're being struck, you have a chance of resetting the cooldown of a defensive ability, or things like that. The one only really good one that I did manage to find was one that granted me 66% attack speed with my main attacks, but it didn't really seem like that good of a thing on a sorcerer, at least when I was messing with it. And unfortunately, I already put it onto a new item, and then I realized that once you do that, you actually can't take it out of the item again, so I kind of screwed myself, because I was leveling my rogue, and I'm like, man, that would have been really nice to have on that character, so I'm not going to be able to use it. I did manage to find one good one, and it basically granted my Chain Lightning a 25% chance to cast a second time, and it was nice when it worked, but again, for me, it didn't feel like it happened as often. And at these lower levels as a sorcerer, you pretty much can only cast Chain Lightning like 2 or 3 times before you run out of mana, so it didn't really feel that good. I imagine once we get a higher level and we have a much larger mana pool, it'll probably feel a lot more impactful. And again, I think things will be a lot different once we get to a higher level. I get it was probably because the beta and we're in Act 1, so maybe they didn't let us have access to a bunch of really nice legendaries. But either way, I bet there's going to be some really awesome legendaries to mess with once we get to the endgame. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the activities to do on the map. First, let's talk about the dungeons, which are a huge part of any Diablo game. In Diablo 4, the dungeons felt pretty good. No longer are you having to chase after stairs to get to the lower levels of the dungeon, now it's just all one massive space. From start to finish, the only load screen you're going to run into is when you actually go into or exit the dungeon for the first time. And calling it a load screen is a bit of a stretch because the loading times are actually pretty quick. Something that I thought is pretty cool is the fact that each dungeon on the map will reward you with an aspect, which is kind of like the aspects you find on a legendary item. An aspect is what the game refers to as that unique ability that you find on a piece of legendary gear. For example, I was talking about that 66% increased attack speed. That's what they consider an aspect. So completing all the different dungeons around the world is going to reward you with a class-specific aspect, and the nice thing about these aspects is that they're actually permanent, meaning you guys can always use them to create items. Keep in mind that you can strip the aspect off of legendary items when you guys find them, but you can only use that aspect one time only. And I know this all may seem really confusing. As we get closer to the game, I'll be sure to put out videos explaining all of these systems so that you guys know exactly what's going on. Because I gotta say that this game has a ton of new systems, and I think that they're kind of sitting right on that edge of this might be a little bit too complicated, but I think time will tell. So anyways, back to the dungeons. So Blizzard said that there's about 105 of them on the map, so if you guys are going to want to collect all of the aspects, you're going to have to clear out all 105. And these dungeons do take some time. I did about 6 of them on the beta, and each of them took anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes to complete. Another really interesting activity that they put in the game are called strongholds. Now, these strongholds are locations around the map that have been essentially taken over by hordes of enemies, and you have to go in there and clear them out. And then once you do so, you can take back the stronghold. I'm not really sure about the long-term rewards for clearing these things out, but you do get renowned for doing them, and a nice chest at the end. The stronghold itself was actually kind of tough for me. I struggled to do it by myself, and I even died a couple of times, so they're no joke. Now let's talk about the world boss. So in the beta, there's a world boss that spawns at random times, and they put an icon on your map a little bit before the boss spawns to give players some time to make their way over. After killing the boss, I gotta say that this is the coolest thing that I've seen in a Diablo game. The fight itself gave me some really strong World of Warcraft raid boss vibes. The boss had a ton of health, had a bunch of one-shot abilities that you needed to dodge, and boy did I die a lot from this guy. What's crazy is that you're actually given a 15-minute timer to kill him, and he actually despawns if you guys don't kill him in that time. So it's a race against the clock to defeat the guy. I think the group I was in, we did manage to kill it, but we only had like less than a minute left on the clock, so it's pretty hard. I kept dying so much that I ended up just respeccing my skills, and I just put a bunch of points into fire hydras, and then I just sat back like far away from the boss, and I just kept spamming my hydras to have them do all the work for me. And it worked. We eventually killed him. And what's crazy is that the boss dropped like a ton of legendaries for me. The whole experience just got me excited, and I just can't wait to see what the other kind of bosses are going to look like. And then, me personally, I've always been a hardcore player. So I'm actually like really scared of this guy because, yeah, it was just super tough, and it's going to be really rough, especially for hardcore players. So overall, I think that this game is going to be a really great addition to the Diablo franchise. And I think Blizzard is actually sitting on some real potential with this game, especially for like Game of the Year. The open beta is next week, and I cannot wait to get back in there and try the Necromancer and the Druid. So I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on Diablo 4. Do you guys plan to play it, and if so, what classes are you more excited to play? Let me know in the comments because I love hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for checking out my video, and with that, we'll see you guys later.